We're going to go live here. And we're going to start talking about the gods of the nakshatras. And so we'll be more or less reading from my new book, Nakshatra, The Authentic Heart of Vedic Astrology, which is available on Amazon right now. So let's just get started. So we're going to start today. We're going to talk a lot about Varuna and Vritra. So it's going to be relevant to Varuna's nakshatra, which is Satabhishak. But it also sets up the whole paradigm that you need to know for kind of the whole pantheon of Vedic gods. So you ready? So this is called the usurper of paradise. Ever since I was into Celtic frost, I was into this word usurper. Usurper means somebody that takes something over, like overthrows. So the first section is called the All-Seer. The All-Seer. The tale of the gods of the Vedic sky does not begin where you expect. It doesn't begin with Vishnu, Shiva, or Brahma. So that's probably where you would expect it to begin, right? One of these big famous gods, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, but it doesn't begin there. The actual tale of the gods doesn't begin there. It begins someplace else. It doesn't even begin with Indra, who's the king of heaven, the king of the gods. So where does it begin? It begins with one whose true tale is hardly known and seldom told. It begins with the All-Seer, the mighty and just ruler and judge of gods and men alike. Who's this? Who's the All-Seer? Who's the mighty just ruler and the judge of gods and men alike? Who is it? Anybody know? Varuna, Danny. You got it. It's Varuna. Nobody knows that. Isn't that amazing? This tale is never told. This tale is unknown, but this is the true tale of the gods. And isn't that exactly like what happens in everyday life all the time? The real hero is unknown. The real person who's great is pretty much not known. But all the people who are really good at marketing, they're known. All the people that are really good at politics, they're known. Like sometimes you'll get people who will say, look at all the great people in history, they're all men. And that proves that women are inferior to men. Well, guess what? That's just the way that things go. The people who actually have really good qualities don't stick themselves out in the front and don't force themselves into situations where it's not beneficial for everybody. So, as you would almost expect, you actually really don't even know or hear about the true leader and king of the Vedic gods, whose name is Varuna. Now, Varuna, now, if I say Varuna, who do you think it is? Well, you might think, Indians call the planet Neptune Varuna, I think, right? So maybe Varuna is like the Indian version of Neptune, god of the seas. Well, I don't know enough about Neptune to know how analogous it is. Surely it is pretty analogous. But here's the details from the the Vedic story. He wasn't always just the god of the seas. He was heaven's first king. He was the first king of the gods. Not just the gods, actually. He was the first king of everything. And later on, he became the god of the seas, and you'll find out why. So let's talk for a second about his name, Varuna. Like somebody said her son is named Varuna, right? So what does Varu mean? Like you have it still in modern English, modern Indian languages. You know what Vara means, or Varu? Anybody? Bueller? Aquaman. Varu means what? Like just in your regular language, in regular modern English language. Vara. It means great. It means good. I think it's still in modern English language, modern Indian languages. Vara means really, really great. So why does Vara mean great? For example, Natavara. Natavara means the best dancer. Okay. So why does Vara mean the best or the great? It means the biggest, the best, the greatest. So the original meaning of the word Vara is all-encompassing, everything, bigger than everything else. So that's what Vara means. It means space itself, the original element, the thing which contains everything else, the biggest thing. And Na means the one, it's just like, God, we don't have an English suffix like this, but it's like a descriptor. So it means like the person who personifies this or the person who is this. So Varuna is the person who is the greatest one. Like Krishna is the person who is attractive. Krishna. Varuna is the person who is the biggest. Vara means blessing. Vara means a great thing, maybe. Vara literally denotes the descriptor of space itself. So he's the god of space. All right? So make sure you understand this. Varuna means the god of the biggest thing. The biggest thing is space. Varuna is the god of space, and he inherits the position from his mother. Anybody know who Varuna's mother is? No. Mary, Brihaspati is Jupiter in India. Varuna is like not a planet, but nowadays they kind of connote it to Neptune, I think. Varuna's mom is Aditi. Aditi is the goddess of space. She passes this on to her son because she didn't pass it. She has 8 really, really important sons, but she gives her own position to Varuna, considering him the most capable and worthy. She gave him the responsibility. So she's like the goddess of everything. The goddess of space itself, the goddess from which everything comes, which is the space element. She gives like stewardship to that, to Varuna, her best son. Varuna, the best one. So he's the one who takes care of the whole sky. Now, these 8 children, they're in different portions of the sky. The eight children of Aditi, they take possession of the sky. She gives them possession of the sky. And they have the different portions, like some are up high in the sky, some are on the horizons, and some are below. Varuna goes to the bottom. Why would you go to the bottom if you're the best? Why would you? Like Varuna is the midnight sky, the 4th house, where the sun is at midnight. That's where Varuna is. Why would you go there if you're the best? Because there's the foundations of the sky. You hold up the entire rest of the sky when you're there. So Varuna goes down to the bottom and holds up the whole, everything, all of space. So he's mighty, powerful. And this is why one of the symbols associated with Varuna and Satyabhishak is a dark circle. Why is it a dark circle? Dark circle means midnight sun. Because this is where Varuna dwells. Varuna dwells in the 4th house of the universe, which means the bottom of the sky. So, and Varuna also, the name Varuna also means enveloping, encompassing, which is interesting because Vṛtra, the dragon that is going to have a problem with Varuna, cause Varuna a problem, also means enveloping. But Varuna is like the enveloper. So he gets to the bottom of the sky and he envelops the whole sky, holds it all together. And that's another reason why you get a symbol of Satyabhishak is a big, gigantic circle. And that's the sutra for Satyabhishak also. It's Vishva Vyacha prastat vishvakshiti avastat. It takes all of the Vritra, the space, and brings it, pulls it together, solidifies it. So that's another purpose for Satyabhishak's symbol of being a circle. It's encompassing things into a tangible space. Cool. This is great stuff, right? So now we go, the god of space is an immensely powerful position, for space is the container of all tangible reality. Everything exists within it, and it exists in everything. Think about this for a second. This is important. If you want to understand anything, like the Vedic philosophy and all that, uses this analogy all the time about space and how everything is in space and space is in everything. So space is very divine. It has a quality of omnipresence. So everything that exists is in space. For example, my body exists in space, in the space of this room. But also the space of this room is within my body. Also, there's space inside my body. I can breathe and pull in an air. I can put food in, etc. Right? So space, everything is in space, and space is also in everything. So that's another important thing about Varuna and Satyabhishak. As the god of space, Varuna was everywhere, and therefore saw everything from every angle, without partiality or imbalance. Always associate all these qualities of the god with the nakshatra who the god rules, which the god rules. Right? So Satyabhishak is everywhere. It goes everywhere. It can get into everything, and can take in a lot of things and bring them all together. So Varuna is the god of space. That means he's everywhere and he can see everything. And that means impartiality doesn't take sides. Satyabhishak doesn't like to, a person who's got a prominent Satyabhishak doesn't like to be pigeonholed onto a certain team. Hey, Kaylee. My friend Kaylee just joined over here on Instagram. So, yeah, so the Varuna is everywhere, sees everything impartially. He's not on anybody's side, he's everywhere. So this is what the word Satyabhishak literally means. Like, Shata means 100 or hundreds, and Bhishak you think it means doctor, so you have to like look at the etymology of this word, but actually Bhishak can also mean eye. Thank you, Mary. It also means eye, right? Why does it mean eye and doctor? Like, how can one word mean doctor and also mean eye? So this is really interesting too. I was just talking to my wife about this. That's at the 7-Eleven this morning. You have to understand words have arudapads and yogapads. They have meanings which arise by use, which are called arudapad, and they have yoga pad, which means the meaning which is inherently tied into it and can't be removed from it. So the inherent meaning of abhishaj is to join. And you see, this is what Varuna is doing, right? Varuna sits at the bottom of the universe and envelops everything. And Vṛtra vishvakshiti joins all the space into something concrete. So abhishak means to join two things together. Why? Now, the arudapad means you can apply this concept of joining things to a whole bunch of different things. Like you could call a plug and an outlet an abhishak. Somebody who puts a needle in somebody else, or somebody who applies a medicine onto your skin can be called an abhishak, and that's why doctors are called abhishak. People having sex can be called abhishak. And think all of these meanings are relevant to the nakshatra named Abhishak. All the arudapads, or the contextual meanings of the word Satyabhishak, are relevant to this nakshatra. So, it can mean sexual contact. It can mean medicinal contact, putting something on something else. It can mean gluing something onto something else, and it also means sense perception. Why? The Vedic concept of sense perception is that there's contact, pratyaksha. There's contact between the sense and the object. You can't perceive something unless you contact it. So with touch, it's obvious you have to contact something physically to touch it. But even with smell, you have to contact the molecules of the things. It has to touch your nose. With sight, you have to contact the light from the thing. With sound, you have to contact the wave that the thing produced. So sense perception is a type of contact. And so abhishek means to perceive. Sata abhishek means 100 perceptions or 100 eyes. The actual stars of this constellation are plentiful. Like some of the nakshatras have 1 or 2 stars and that's all. The actual stars in Satabhishek are lots of little dots. And those are called the 100 eyes of Varuna. And that's why it's called Satabhishek. Ko Hashiguchi says, I wonder if Satabhishek is a Vedic analog of Greek. Greek, what is it? I can't see. I didn't bring my glasses. Logos. I don't know enough Greek to know if it is. But I thought logos. I don't know enough Greek to comment on that, sorry. So, right, so he's everywhere. That means he can see everything. So, figuratively speaking, he's got hundreds of eyes. Now, if you got 100 eyes and they're everywhere, then you see everything from every angle. Like in life, when something happens to us, we just see it from our angle. The person who worked at this restaurant was so mean to me today. That's all you see from your angle. But if you had another eye in that person's kitchen, you would see how their wife or their husband yelled at them rudely that day or something. And that's why they were mean to you. And then you wouldn't feel like, why? Right? So when you see things from one point of view, then you become biased. But when you see things from more than one point of view, you lose your bias. So part of the character of Varuna is to not be biased. And this is part of the character of Satabhishek. Though it's not a dispassionate non-bias. I remember, Kaylee, if you're still watching, you remember this person who stays at your house sometimes used to always tell me, I have to be more dispassionate because dispassion leads to bias. But actually, my prominent nakshatra is Satabhishek, which is passionate. Satabhishek means 100 unions, 100, joinings. So it's passionate, but it's passionate. It's unbiased in a passionate way. It's very, very invested in things, but it wants to see them from all angles. So there are different ways to be non-biased. It's not that the only way to be non-biased is to be dispassionate and not care about it. Another way to be non-biased is to care about the thing so much that you want to see it from every possible angle. That's the nature of Satabhishek. All right, so Varuna has this quality that he's very concerned with everything and everyone, but he sees it from all the angles, so he's very neutral. That's what makes him, that's why he became the ideal ruler. See, the ruler is the person who will say, you are bad and you're okay, and so you need to be punished and you need to be rewarded. That's the ruler. That's what Varuna was doing in the beginning. And why would he do that? Because he's perfectly fair and he sees everything everywhere. And so this is another quality of Satabhishek Nakshatra. It's judgmental. But it shouldn't be unless it's unhealthy. It shouldn't be unfairly judgmental. It makes judgments after careful consideration of a thing from all angles. So this is really... Actually, all the nakshatras are quite fantastic. You can become a fantastic person from any nakshatra, from having the qualities of any nakshatra. But all of these nakshatras can also clash or dysfunction and cause a problem. Okay. All right, so let's go forward. So far we learned a lot about Satabhishek. So let's get back to Varuna. From his base in the underworld, that's why he's associated with the underworld, because he's in the 4th house, the bottom of the sky. the nadir of the sky. From his base in the underworld and the nadir of the sky, mortals were brought to him for judgment between lifetimes. Now you might be scratching your head and saying, Vic, I think you're crazy. I think you got this wrong. I think you got this wrong because that's God, that's Yama. They bring to him. I'm talking about the first era of the gods. Before Yama was... Actually, Yama was Varuna's deputy at this point in time. But before Yama took over that job, this was Varuna's job. Varuna was the judge. You see? So, mortals were brought to Varuna, Varuna's court of judgment, and the gods also. So this is also an important thing about Satyabhishek. It's not afraid if you are a guru, or if you are a big person, or if you're the boss, or if you're a parent. It's not afraid to judge you. So this is going to make Satyabhishek not fit in so well with hierarchies and societies and institutions, because it's going to criticize leaders. Varuna judges the gods and the mortals alike, and doesn't care that you're a god and you're a mortal. He just cares about what's fair. And so people with prominence at the Bishak have the same thing. I don't care if people call you Swami. I don't care if people call you hero. I don't care if people call you Mr. President or boss. What you did is stupid. Or I don't care if nobody knows you. What you did is great. I'm going to support you. So they're like that. They're very, very, very neutral. So the mortals and the immortals were brought to Varuna. Now, how would you bring an immortal to Varuna? They don't die. Well, they do die, but they die at the end, at a very long period of time. But if there's some question with the gods, they do some questionable activity, the other gods would bring them to Varuna to be judged. Now, Varuna, his weapon is very interesting. And it's also why Satyabhishek has a circle as a symbol. Varuna's weapon is not a sword or a mace or anything like that. Varuna's weapon is, anybody know? A lasso. Like a cowboy would. So like Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman has that cool magic rope lasso thing. So Varuna had a lasso. So lassos don't really kill, but they arrest. So that was his job. He would arrest people who were suspicious of, and gods who were suspicious of having done something seriously wrong, and bring them to court. And then he would admit, and then because he was powerful, he would impose the judgment on them. So kind of like Judge Dredd a little bit too. So now, he was known as an Asura. Now, you might be thinking, Asura means bad guy. Well, Asura doesn't mean bad guy. In fact, Varuna is not just an Asura. Varuna is the Asura. If you just use the word Asura without like a participle before, like that means Varuna. That's a name for Varuna, is Asura. And what does the word Asura actually mean? Sur, like the sun is called Surya because it has so much power. So Suras, or the gods, they have a lot of power, but Asura is even more powerful. Just by the way the prefix A works, it makes it even more powerful. So it's like overpowered. They're like the OP, overpowered gods are the Asuras. But that's why they eventually, well, you'll see that the intrigue and the politics and the soap opera are involved in why they eventually get to be labeled as anti-gods or demons. But this is also problematic, and it's also problematic about Satyabhishek. A little bit too much power. You have a little bit too much power. You take yourself a little bit too much seriously. You're not afraid to judge anybody, do anything, say anything. And you don't team up so well. Although this may not always be the case with Satyabhishek because it really likes to join things together. So he was known as an Asura, or if not the Asura, long before the term became used to refer to those who are inimical to the gods, when it simply had its original meaning, exceedingly powerful. All the divinities, Sura and Asura alike, were united under Varuna's rule. And they lived together in the celestial paradise, which is called Svarga. So imagine this time. This is before the common history that's even recorded in the Vedas. Though the Vedas, there's traces of this period of time left in the Vedas, otherwise we wouldn't know about it. But this is a period of time which is before even the common mythologic time, pre-mythologic era, pre-legendary era. Before there was gods and demons, they lived together with this super fair, super just, super moral, super powerful being holding them together. And so that's also what Satyabhishek has the power to do. Because it's a non-biased, it has the power to take things from diverse camps and pull them together and make them work. Like take something from Western astrology, take something from Indian astrology, make it work together. Take something from Vedic philosophy, take something from modern science, make it work together. Like that, take something from Rome, take something from India, make it work together. Make a pizza taste good with a samosa. So that's part of the skill or talent, that's part of the potential that's in Satyabhishek, because that's what Varuna was able to do. And like in Sanskrit, in the Bhakti Yoga circles, there's a nice saying, Dhira Dhira Janapriya. If somebody is really saintly, they're Dhira Dhira Janapriya. They're beloved to both the saints and the sinners. And Satyabhishek has that quality, that it can unite these different people. All right, any questions about Varuna so far? I'll try to read without my glasses. Not my problem, Mass. I heard that as far as professions are concerned, Satyabhishek relates to astrologers. What do you think, Vic? It's very possible, because astrology has to take very abstract. What Satyabhishek is good at doing is taking abstract things like space and making them concrete, like Earth. Vishva Vyacha Vishvakshiti. So it can take something very abstract and make it concrete. That type of skill is very important for an astrologer, because they're working with abstract symbols and then trying to boil it down into something concrete. Anything else? He doesn't have a dragon. Someone's saying, what about his dragon? He doesn't have a dragon, but we're going to hear about the dragon's going to come into the story now. All right. Oh yeah, Eddie Rosario is like dealing with airplanes. It's also pretty well known that as far as careers go, see, dealing with space is part of what Satyabhishek can do. Like dealing with the sky, dealing with space. So that's another reason why it could be good for astrology or anything that has to do with the sky and space. Did people trust Varuna completely? They completely trusted Varuna. The important mythic deeds of Varuna, these were his important deeds. I mean, his deeds were that he would judge everybody, and he held all the gods together. But the records are not intact of some specific things he did. But now we're going to come up to the one key thing that's recorded, because it leads into the current situation that we have today. So, the important mythic deed of Varuna begins with the dragon, Vṛtra. So Varuna's kingdom came to an end, and the downfall of this kingdom was triggered by another Asura. And it was exploited by It was triggered by another Asura, this dragon, this Naga, and it was exploited by Varuna's own brother. So this is another thing with Satyabhishek. You're likely to get betrayed. You're likely to be betrayed if you have a prominent Satyabhishek. So the Asura who triggered Varuna's downfall was Vṛtra. Hard, difficult word for people to pronounce. You just got to curve your tongue up when you say vr, and then say tra. Vṛtra. Vṛtra was the first Naga. So just as Varuna is the first Asura, Vṛtra is the first Naga. Why they're both Asuras? What you can call them both Asuras? Because Nagas are Asuras. Vṛtra is the primary Asura, and the primary Naga. Sorry, Vṛtra is the primary Naga. Nagas are mystical snakes, mystical serpents, dragons. And his name, the name means the one who grabs things. Grabs things. The trouble began when Vṛtra became enamored with the beautiful goddess of flowing water, Apis. So, many problems start when a male can't govern and control his desire to possess something, especially a female. So the problem is that Apis showed no interest in Vṛtra, and Vṛtra was unable to tolerate it. Because he's powerful. This is the problem with being an Asura. And it's also the problem with having a prominent Satyabhishek. It's very difficult to tolerate lack of recognition. It's very difficult to tolerate disrespect. It's very difficult to tolerate being ignored. Think about me. I have a prominent Satyabhishek and my ascendant is Uttarashada. It's so difficult to tolerate being ignored. So, he couldn't deal with this, that she wouldn't like him. So what he did instead was grabbed her. That's what his name Vṛtra actually means, to grab. So he seized her. How would he seize this goddess? He took all the water. She's the goddess of flowing water, so he took all the water. And how can you seize water? Well, the clouds do it all the time, right? So Vṛtra is a cloud dweller, and this is also the concept of Nagas. If you see them in Asian art, the Nagas are always surrounded by clouds, which is wild because they wind up being underground. So snakes, well, like the fallen form of Nagas went into the holes and went underground, but the original form of Nagas were up in the clouds. Not the low clouds, but the super high clouds. The low clouds will release the water again, but the very high clouds, they freeze it as ice. So there's some hint in the Veda about the way that they use the word container for the water, that it was frozen in these super high altitude clouds. So that's what Vṛtra did. He just evaporated all the water and stuck it in these super high clouds. Now Varuna, so what's Varuna going to do? This guy did something pretty bad. What's Varuna going to do? Varuna's the judge. So people were a little bit perplexed. Varuna didn't really do anything. He knew the power and strength of flowing water, a force that simply cannot be restrained for long. He knew this is ridiculous. This guy is trying to contain flowing water. It's going to fail. He knew Apis would soon escape by her own strength and the situation would resolve itself. So he didn't want to cause a big war. But this is a super powerful being. And he's a super powerful. It's not for revenge. Nothing bad has happened yet. Vṛtra just loved Apis, the goddess of water, flowing water. She's not interested in him. Vṛtra says, well, if you're not interested in me, I'll make you interested in me, and I'll hold you in one place until you submit to me. And Varuna says, this is not going to work for him. So he sits there and waits. But Varuna's patience was not shared by his brother. Varuna's brother, remember, I'm sorry, I just read a comment that says something. Varuna's remember I said there's 8 really important Adityas, children of Aditi? So one of them is Indra, whose name wasn't Indra at this point, whose name was Parjanya, the rainer, the rainmaker. So this brother is the rain god. He's not sharing Varuna's patience with their not being able to make rain. Hey, Lakshmi. Right? He's not sharing Varuna's patient. Like, just wait. It's going to rain. You can't keep the water up in the clouds forever. It's going to rain. And Indra's like, no, I'm the god of rain. I need it to rain now. So he was unable to function at all because of Vṛtra's mischief. So the rain god, Parjanya, who would become somebody that you know as Indra. Sorry, I already put that cat out of the bag. In the book, I let it be a little more dramatic. You don't know who he is. The rain god strides forth in anger to make war against the dragon. So this rain god's like, wow, this dragon has stolen the water. Bam! I'm not going to wait for Varuna. He goes forth to fight against Vṛtra, but he's completely useless against Vṛtra. And Vṛtra is just way more powerful than this rain god. And so Varuna and Agni, the god of fire, they come and they say, calm down, buddy. He says, it's going to be over soon. Just don't kill yourself trying to make it over now. That's what Agni, because Agni knows how to evaporate water and knows that he will get held in water. Agni is the god of fire. So he knows the superiority of water. So Indra, the rain god, he desisted for a while, but he thought, okay, look, I can't attack this guy directly. Now this is going to start to tell you about Jyeshta Nakshatra, which is Indra's nakshatra. I can't attack this guy directly. My power is ineffective. So I have to indirectly make this work. And that's the nature of Jyeshta Nakshatra. Right? The sutra for Jyeshta Nakshatra is Shrinat Parastat Pratishrinat Avastat. That it needs to be provoked or attacked so that it can counterattack. It needs to make things attack each other. So it's good at politicking to provoke people and make things attack so that it can counterattack. So Indra did exactly that. He said, all right, I'm not going to attack, but he starts to make politics. So kind of things that he said was, if we don't do something right now to release Appas, the world will wither and die in drought. And eventually Varuna agreed, putting pressure on other people, saying, hey, let's all go petition Varuna. Let's make a petition, sign this petition. So eventually Varuna says, all right, I guess it's taking too long. Let's support an attack. I'll support the attack on Vṛtra. So he, with the help of Vṛtra and Agni, then Indra could lead this attack against Vṛtra. And what Indra could do was hit the dragon with a lightning bolt. This is the rain god's weapon, is a lightning bolt. And so that's what happens actually. The way that you get the clouds to release their water, the high up clouds to release their water, is to cause like a lot of upward motion in the air, which would generate static electricity, and then it generates lightning, and then it causes the temperature to change, and then those guys melt and the rain falls down. So this is how Indra released the water from the grip of Vṛtra. So they all fell down out of the sky. And this is why Indra is known as the river maker, and sometimes symbolized as a bull like plowing a riverbed. So he's known as the river maker because he released this torrential downpour from the skies, and then all the rivers came back into being, all Appas came back. So you get a little clue about Jeshta now. How it may be ineffectual in attacking directly, but if it can get some allies and make things happen, then it can be effectual. But now, this is a good question too. I'm sorry, I can't see, because it's like white underneath the white. And some of these names are difficult to read. But somebody asked, do any nakshatra relate to Apas? Yes, Apas is Purva Ashada. And I'm going to talk about that next. So really in this story, we're learning about Satyabhishak, Jeshta, and Purva Ashada. Apas is the goddess of Purva Ashada. So I'll bring that up next, what you see so far. And then also you're going to see what happens after this. What happens right after this battle is going to really show you about Jeshta Nakshatra. All right, any questions so far? Does the tra on Vṛtra mean anything? Tra is a suffix which means maker, like in English, ER, refrigerator. So Vṛt means to like bring it together. It's a lot like Varuna, or Vṛt means to do something or capture something, acquire something. Acquire something is a good way to put it in the context of what the name means here. The acquirer, the Seizure. Caesar, isn't that an interesting coincidence? The Roman emperor's name. Vṛtra, Eddie says Vṛtra kind of messed with Indra first. I wonder if he did so with intent. No. Vṛtra disliked this woman, Apas, and didn't have any politics in mind. But this won't help you really understand any of the nakshatras, because Vṛtra doesn't live in any nakshatra. Vṛtra actually got killed. But just now, actually what happened in the story is the thunderbolt of Indra cut the head, decapitated Vṛtra. So then he's out of the picture. And how Jeshta and Purva Ashada relationship, that's potentially a good relationship. Because Indra saved Apas, and there's a great relationship between the god of rain and the goddess of water, right? See, this is a really good way to do your, whatchamacallit, thinking about relationship compatibility, which I'll be researching, which I'm starting to research now. One of the things I'll research, how the actual character of the gods can show compatibility between nakshatras. Alrighty. So let's see what's next about Apas. So here's a section in the book that I call the power of allies. This is one thing that you're going to learn about Purva Ashada and that you'll see about Apas. See how Apas is actually the focal point of this whole story. I mean, in the sense that she's kind of like the passive focal point of the story. Like everything happens, not because of her, but like around her. And so that's also the nature of Purva Ashada too, is it surrounds itself by power. So what we learn about Apas from this tale is that she is unstoppably powerful. That's another thing. Varuna was like, I don't need to save Apas. She can save herself. With great respect for her power, Varuna and Agni both knew that she would eventually be able to liberate herself from her captivity. However, in this tale, we also learn that much of her power comes from how many allies she has. So many different beings all depend on her and cannot survive without her, so they must eventually come to her aid. So that's the thing. This shows you about Purva Ashada and how to succeed if you have a prominent Purva Ashada. You need to be a kingpin in some group. Purva Ashada should become a kingpin in a group where it's not necessarily the one on the front line doing the things, but it's the thing that everybody on the front lines, it's the person or the thing or the resource that everybody on the front lines is dependent on. So the specific figures involved in the story of Apas's kidnapping are not fanciful at all. Varuna is the ocean. Agni is heat. Heat evaporates water from the ocean. Now, why is Varuna the ocean, actually? I thought you said he was space. And I thought you said that later on he was the ocean. This I didn't explain so well. He's also from the origin associated with the ocean because he goes down to the bottom of the sky, as I said, right? In the beginning, I explained that Varuna goes down to the fourth house of the universe and holds the sky together from there, making that enveloping circular symbol of Satyabhishak. What's down there? According to Vedic cosmology, what's down there in the fourth? It's Cancer. Fourth sign is Cancer. It's full of water. Because it's the bottom. By the law of gravity, the water goes down. So the bottom of the universe is a place where water accumulates. The universe is not the same universe that you see. The universe that we're talking about here is not the universe that you see with the telescope. It's a different kind of universe. It's a universe that the gods see, that human beings won't see. The bottom of that universe is full of some kind of water or liquid. And since Varuna dwells there, even from the beginning, he's associated with waters. So Varuna is liquid or water. Agni is the sun or heat. Heat evaporates water from the ocean and transforms it into clouds. Since the ocean and heat aid in taking water up to the sky, it's understandable that Varuna and Agni were initially sympathetic to Vṛtra. Yeah, it might be a little disappointing, like why didn't Agni and Varuna just go and smack this guy Vṛtra right off the bat? I mean, why would you let him kidnap a woman? Might be a little disappointing. But it would be less disappointing if you realize who Apas is. She's not a helpless woman. She's a freaking powerful woman. She's a goddess. But the other thing is, they understand the process of evaporation. They're sympathetic to the need for evaporation, so they have a little bit of sympathy towards Vṛtra, like it or not, if it's palatable or not. They have a little bit of sympathy towards Vṛtra because that's what they do also. Agni and Varuna, they evaporate water from the ocean. It is also natural that the rain god would be the most disturbed by the abduction of water and therefore the first to liberate Apas from the clouds, and would do so with a thunderbolt, a severe thunderstorm that can transform even the frozen clouds into monsoon rains. All right, so Apas, what you learn about Apas is that she's central or critical to all the gods. They can't just let her be abducted. Even Varuna and Agni eventually had to say, yeah, you're right, this is taking too long. Let's rescue her. All right, let's see, any questions? I got to put my, how to see that nakshatra is afflicted or not. How to see if a nakshatra is afflicted or not. Basically, the way that I do it is the nakshatra occupied by a planet which is compatible with its nature? Like, for example, let's take Satyabhishak, since most of our talk today is about Satyabhishak. If you stick Rahu in Satyabhishak, is that compatible with the nature of Satyabhishak? It really is actually very compatible, because that's the nature of Satyabhishak, is that it's very powerful but outside of the hierarchical structure and very neutral to all the teams. And that's very compatible with Rahu, and you're going to see how Varuna is going to be overthrown and all that stuff. And so there's chaos and overthrowing and things like that. So Rahu, for example, in Satyabhishak tends to make it function well. But if you put, let's say, Moon in Satyabhishak, it's less likely to function as well. It's more likely to malfunction, because the Moon is soft, needs teams, needs to be shy and quiet. That's one thing to do. You kind of estimate how compatible is the nature of the planet with this nakshatra. Then the other thing you want to do is, how compatible is this nakshatra, or the nakshatra and planetary pair, how compatible is it with the rest of the chart? So if Satyabhishak is occupied by Rahu, but the ascendant is Cancer, is a moony, like a moon or Pisces or something, then that's not really like some of the aspects of Satyabhishak are not compatible with that. So that's one way that indicates that this is, interpret this nakshatra as malfunctioning. That's how you do it. That's the basic way that you do any astrological interpretation, is you see how things either go well together or bang against each other. And when they bang against each other, like one thing is saying the person is very powerful and loud, and the other thing is saying they're very humble and quiet. Those things bounce against each other, so that indicates they're not going to function well. But if they're both saying quiet and humble, then that is great. And if they're both saying powerful and loud, then that's great. And now you're not just dealing with two, so both, but you're dealing with 1,600 factors in an astrology chart, so that's where it becomes kind of amazingly difficult. What will make Appas stagnant and not powerful? If she doesn't have partners. That's what Appas needs. Purvashad, Appas needs people who are power. That's the sutra for Purvashad is Vachas Parastat. It needs power. It needs power, sources of power sources. Vacha. It needs sources of power. So that's the quality of rivers, actually, right? Is they bring people together. Rivers, water, they bring people together. Towns form on the borders of rivers. Animals assemble on the borders of rivers. That's what Purvashada does. When it succeeds, it brings together a team that helps each other. So it's feminine. So Purvashada is more feminine in its approach to strategy and strategic. It's feminine too in the sense that it plans. What do I need? Before I rush out the door, what do I need to take with me? So Purvashad it plans, what do I need? How can I get it? Let's assemble it. Okay, we all have it. We're ready to go. Okay, now it's time to go to Uttarashada, where we run out the door and we conquer. So if Purvashad, for whatever reason, doesn't have the ability to attract partners that will augment it and support it, then it will stagnate, so to speak, and become weak water. So Shiv Sevak makes an interesting point. Satyabhishak asterism, it has the quality of being associated with drugs and alcohol. But it also has a quality of being associated with visionaries and seers and mystics, because it's basically the same thing. Right? It's just the drugs are like a cheaper, crutchy way to accomplish the vision and the insight. Also, another reason for that is Abhishek means to apply a medicine. So Satyabhishak people can be kind of just handy with medicines, which medicines are drugs. And because of the passion in Satyabhishak, it can become bored with ordinary, conventional things that are just tangible and right in life, and it would need things that are more bigger picture. So it might prefer to take an opiate where it can just get some big picture and then come back and pull it all together. So Satyabhishak does have a is prone to getting involved with drugs. But this is the same thing. There's an Arudha Pada and a Yoga Pada, as I talked about with words before. With your astrology, it's the same deal. You need to know the Yoga Pada of the interpretation, the actual fundamental central interpretation, and then Arudha interpretations are the ways that interpretation can arise in different contexts. So the Yoga Pada of Satyabhishak is that it takes abstractions and makes them real. It takes space and makes it earth. It joins a lot of things together. It applies a lot of things. And then you can put that in different contexts and understand. Let's see if we got any other questions. Does that mean people born in Purvashada will be weak and need partners to succeed? Don't think like that. You're thinking in the male way. Like, if I'm not strong myself, then I'm not strong. That's That's fine if your nakshatra is Uttarashada. Think that way. But if your nakshatra is Purvashada, you better not try to think like a male in terms of how you're going to win things. It doesn't mean that you're weak, that you need a team. It means get your team. So you'll be, the person who has the team is more powerful than the strong person is by himself. I don't know. Check any war. Like, how many heroes can defeat 300 warriors? No, practically it's only a myth, right? In fact, how many swordsmen can beat 3 other swordsmen? 5. It's practically impossible. All right, let's see what else. Got anything else? Musashi. Miyamoto Musashi, he could defeat 5 to 10, even the greatest swordsmasters in history. So yeah, please don't think that if you need a team, that means that you're weak. It just means that you're smart, actually. It means that you're smart. There's different kinds of strength. That's what the astrology teaches us, really, is that there's different kinds of opportunities, there's different kinds of strength, they're not all the same. If you don't have one, you have another. So astrology will help you figure out which one you have, which one you can develop, and which one is kind of not up your alley to develop. Yeah, look at how the Navy does things. All right, then I guess we'll stop, right? This was great. So we get up to, how far did we get up to? We got up to, so we're going to start talking about Kritika. So I'll just give you the intro to this, because the intro ties to the last. From this primordial tale, we also learn something essential about Agni. The fire god's ability to evaporate water from the ocean demonstrates fire's fundamental nature, which is going to really open the door for understanding Kritika. The fundamental nature of fire is to separate energy from its possessor. So it takes the water from the ocean. And that's really important to understand Kritika. So we'll follow up on that next week, okay? Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I'm going to shut all these live streams down now. I hope you had fun. See you next week. There's Facebook. There's Instagram. And here goes